All right, burgeoning viewers, one quick note for you. A subscriber a day in October. If we hit 31 subscribers in 31 days, one lucky subscriber will walk away with the entire Modern Horizons art card series. Additionally, a comment a day. Any subscriber that leaves a comment in every video posted by MTG Burgeoning during the month of October will become eligible for the November Pack Wars. On November 1st, a list of all subscribers that left a comment on every MTG Burgeoning video during the month of October will be compiled, and from this list, one subscriber will be randomly chosen to participate in the November Pack Wars. So hope for peace, but prepare for war. Burgeoning community, you have returned because today is Sunday Fun Day. All day, baby. All Sunday. Every Sunday. Sunday is Fun Day. Welcome back, burgeoning community. Here we are. We are building with Morophon because Sunday is PHONday. Sunday is Fun Day. So, for anyone who might be a little behind with where we are right now, you can click on any of the links below to bring you up to speed before we continue with building our Morophon, the Boundless EDH Commander deck, and we are building around humans. Now, last time that we got together, we rolled out 100 different human spells that fit a certain number of criteria to try to limit the number, and we still got to a burgeoning number of 100. And those conditions were no common creature spells, no creature spells could have multiple mana symbols of the same color, and no creature spell could have any generic or colorless mana cost greater than 2. And we still hit 100. So, in order to slim this list of human creature cards to a more manageable amount, we are going to take a legendary human creature route with this deck. And in so doing, we shave off 67 of the original 100 cards. 33 cards are a lot more manageable than 33 cards are a lot more manageable than 100. So let's get to those legendary human creature spells very, very soon. First, we're going to quickly run through the first 12 cards that we added to this deck 2 weeks ago in order to establish the fact that this is going to be all Morophon all the time. As Morophon is the ultimate tribal leader, these are all going to be tribal-specific cards, or very generic tribal cards, like Urza's Incubator, Herald's Horn, Vanquisher's Banner, Distant Melody, Kindred Discovery, Kindred Summons, Door of Destinies, Icon of Ancestry, Cathar's Crusade, Lifecrafter's Bestiary, and then this is where we start to get human-specific as opposed to general tribe-specific with Mass Appeal and Angel of Glory's Rise. So those were the first 12 cards that we added. So now let's take a very brief look, as brief as we can when we're running through 33 legendary humans, and let's talk about the ones we're going to be adding into this deck. Let's start with Alesha, who smiles at death. 2 in a red, 3/2 first strike, and whenever she attacks, we can tap 2 Orzhov, any combination of white, black, white, black, white, white, black, black. If we do, we return target creature card with power 2 or less from our graveyard to the battlefield tapped and attacking. So this gives us some specific graveyard recursion in order to target some of our humans. And let's face it, we're going to have a swath of human creature cards in this deck that have a power of 2 in the graveyard. But once they enter the graveyard, because of a majority of the spells that you already saw, they're going to be a lot more powerful in combat. So Alesha is number 1. Next up, we have Azusa, Lost But Seeking. Not too much to talk about here. We get to play 2 extra lands each turn. We love you, Azusa. We love you from the Kamigawa block. Next up, we have a powerful commander in her own right. Taking a seat in the 99 is going to be Breya, Ethereum Shaper. She's a 4/4, and when she comes into play, we create 2 1/1 blue Thopter artifact creature tokens with flying. So we could choose to keep those Thopter tokens on the battlefield, flying around, becoming a nuisance to everyone, or we can tap 2 and choose to sacrifice them. And if we do, Breya deals 3 damage to a player, or target creature gets -4/-4 until end of turn, or we gain 5 life. Now, we do have other artifacts that are already included in the deck, and I'm pretty sure we'll be adding some additional ones too. So it's not like the tap sacrifice a couple of artifacts isn't something that we can do with things other than the Thopters. So Breya is in. All right, next up, staying on theme with the Commander 26 legendary creatures, we have Bruce Tarl, the Boorish Herder. And of course, this guy's going to do some Boros things. When he comes into play or attacks, target creature we control gains double strike and lifelink until end of turn. And note, he can target himself. Bruce Tarl, he's in there at number 4. Next up, we're taking a trip back to Theros. And here we go, Daxus of Miletus. Not quite sure how to say that. Anyone can let me know in the comments. I'd appreciate that greatly. All right, so you have a 2/2 legendary human soldier, and he can't be blocked by creatures power 3 or greater. So if we can get his power and toughness boosted enough, we have a pretty good idea that he might be able to survive most combats. And whenever Daxus deals combat damage to a player, we exile the top card of that player's library. We gain life equal to that card's converted mana cost, and until end of turn, we may cast that card, and we may spend mana as though it were mana of any color to cast it. So he has some pseudo unblockability, he allows us to gain life, and he gives us card advantage by allowing us to cast spells right from the top of our opponent's library after they're exiled. Daxus is awesome. Okay. Next up, we had, and I specify, we had Exava. Exava was one of the 100 that ended up being filtered into the legendary human stipulation. However, we are going to remove her from the 33, and that is based on we do not have a +1/+1 counter theme or focus in this deck. We have very few ways to get +1/+1 counters onto other creatures, allowing them to have haste. So with Exava coming out, this allows us the opportunity to add a couple of other legendary humans that weren't included in the original 100. So Exava is coming out. We'll put her over here. She comes out. Next up, we have Grand Arbiter Augustin IV, another great commander in and of itself. All right, so 2/3 white spells we cast cost 1 less to cast. Blue spells we cast cost 1 less to cast. How effective are these mana reductions going to be for us in this deck? Well, we are about, 44 cards in, 45, something in the mid-40s, and over 50% of the cards included in this deck already will realize the cost reduction from Grand Arbiter Augustin IV. So that's fantastic, and we still have more cards to add. You know what 100% of the spells will be affected? Our opponents, because we're going to add a tax of 1 to every spell that they cast. Grand Arbiter is in. All right, next up we have Hannah, Ship's Navigator. 1, a white and a blue, and tapping her allows us to return an artifact or enchantment card from our graveyard to our hand. You saw the valuable artifacts and enchantments already included into this deck in the first 12 cards, including Hannah as a way in which to recur them, because let's be honest, our opponents are going to be targeting them for removal, and including Hannah will allow us opportunities to bring them back to our hand and get them back into the graveyard, or get them back onto the battlefield so that our opponents can put them into the graveyard. So important is this that through the value of redundancy, we may also be including Academy Ruins and Hall of Heliod's Generosity, just as a way in which to make sure we can get back those artifacts and enchantments. Next up, another great commander by itself, we have Hapatra, Vizier of Poisons. Whenever Halpatra deals combat damage to a player, we may put a -1/-1 counter on target creature. And whenever we put a -1/-1 counter on a creature, or whenever we put one or more, I have to specify because there is a difference. Whenever we put one or more -1/-1 counters on a creature, we create a 1/1 green snake creature token with Death Touch. So if we can get Halpatra in our hand early and the means to cast her, she can do some damage to some mana dorks and some land fetching chump blockers. And so doing, create us some pet snakes. Next up, we have Jirina Kudro from Commander 2020. When she enters the battlefield, we create a white human soldier creature token for each time we've cast a commander from the command zone this game. Now, Morophon costs 7 CMC, and yes, we do have some spells included to help reduce that mana cost. I mean, how many times are we planning to cast Morophon here? 1, maybe 2, maybe 3. So I don't know how many of these human soldier creature tokens we're going to get from Jirina coming into play. However, it's not her primary ability that makes her so valuable to this deck. It's her secondary one, and that's giving other humans we control +2/+0. That is a considerable power boost. And next up we had, and I do say had because this next creature card is going the way of Exava, and that's going to be Joda, the Archmage Eternal. Yes, he flies, and yes, he's a 4/3, so that's a sizable body for a reasonable investment of mana. However, paying white, blue, black, red, green, rather than paying the mana cost for spells that we cast, does not fit the theme of this deck because I think there's only 2, maybe 3 cards right now that have a converted mana cost greater than 5. So Joda is taking up a spot that I think would be much more valuable with a more synergistic creature that we're going to add at the end of this. So Joda, we're going to turn you sideways, and we're going to put you over there next to Exava. Nothing personal, it's just you would be better in a different build. Next creature, we have Judith, the Scourge Diva. Other creatures we control get +1/+0, so that's a nice modest power boost. And whenever a non-token creature we control dies, Judith deals 1 damage to any target. There we go. Judith is in. All right, the next one is a personal favorite of mine. Karizev, the Skyship Raider. A 1/3 first strike menace, and whenever she attacks, we create Ragavan. That's right, folks. It's Ragavan's world. We just live in it. Whenever she attacks, we create a 2/1 red monkey creature token named Ragavan that's tapped and attacking. Unfortunately, we have to exile that monkey at the end of combat, but who doesn't want to create a monkey token? Karizev, you are in, and make sure you bring Ragavan. Next up, we're going back to Commander 2020, and there is some hidden value with this creature. Calcian the Plague. 2/2 Vigilance Haste. It gets +1/+1 for each experience counter we have. We can tap Calcian to deal 1 damage to target creature we don't control. When that creature dies this turn, we get an experience counter. So the fact that Calcian has Vigilance and can tap to deal a point of damage, that creates all kinds of combat shenanigans and chicanery that we can do in order to grow our experience counters and make Calcian bigger and bigger. And besides, how many 1/1s or 2/1s or 3/1s out there on the battlefield are there for mana dork abilities or land fetchers or anything else like that? Calcian comes in, pings them all right away. There is some value in Calcian. I know there is. There is some value there. Okay, next up we have Kess, Dissident Mage. Now, at the moment, Kess is on the fence because we are uncertain how many instant and sorcery cards we're going to have included in this deck. And I do think that there should be a decent amount in order to take advantage of her ability, because as a 3/4 flyer for a CMC of 4, that's okay. Her ability says that during each of our turns, we may cast an instant or sorcery card from our graveyard. And if we do, we exile it instead of putting it into the graveyard. But if we only have, say, 8 to 10 instant or sorcery spells throughout the entire deck, I don't know the value of Kess, so Kess is included at the moment, but as we get closer to the finality of this build, she might be on the chopping block for something better. All right, next creature up, we have Lavinia, Azorius Renegade. Opponents can't cast non-creature spells with converted mana cost greater than the number of lands that player controls. Do you know what that means, folks? That means mana rocks. That means mana dorks. That means you're not casting non-creature spells with the use of those mana rocks and the use of those mana dorks if its converted mana cost is greater than the number of lands you control. This is EDH. That stuff happens in every single game. Whenever an opponent casts a spell, if no mana was spent to cast it, counter that spell. I would love for someone to inadvertently cast a mana crypt while we have Lavinia on the battlefield. This is great against the Pact cycle. This is great against the Commander 2020 cycle, where if you control a commander, this spell is free. Lavinia is a sneaky, powerful creature, and she deserves her spot in this deck. Speaking of some powerful human women in this deck, we have Marchesa the Black Rose. 3/3 with the dethrone mechanic, and other creatures we control have dethrone. And whenever a creature with a +1/+1 counter on it dies, we return that card to the battlefield under our control at the beginning of the next end step. If you've ever played against a Marchesa commander deck where she is the general, you know how powerful that can be. Now, this is not a dedicated +1/+1 build. However, the dethrone mechanic helps to get some +1/+1 counters on those creatures. Next, we're going on a trip to Dominaria, and we are going to talk about Wrath Capuchin, Ship's Mage. 3/3 flash and flying, we may cast historic spells as though they had flash. And for the purposes of this deck, what an advantage that is, because historic for us are all of our legendary humans and all of our artifacts. Not certain that we're going to include any sagas, but we don't need to because of all the other ones we have. Next up is a burgeoning favorite to the point where we already have a commander deck helmed by Saskia the Unyielding. 3/4 Vigilance Haste. When she enters the battlefield, we choose a player. And whenever a creature we control deals combat damage to a player, it deals that much damage to the chosen player. There's politics all over the place with this command, or with this legendary human, or commander, of course. And just to point out, if we choose a player and then we attack that player, they're taking double the damage. Saskia the Unyielding is awesome. All right, another awesome commander that's going to be part of our 99. Send Triplets. At the beginning of our upkeep, we choose target opponent. This turn, that player can't cast spells or activate abilities and plays with their hand revealed. We may play lands and cast spells from that player's hand this turn. Thank you for letting us borrow your spells. Thank you for letting us borrow your lands. We'll do our best to make sure they benefit us the greatest way possible. Next up is a creature similar to Kess who may be on the chopping block just because it doesn't bring much to the team. And that's Shana, Sisei's Legacy. It's a green and a white, and she can't be the target of abilities our opponents control. So there's a pseudo hexproof ability included there. And she gets +1/+1 for each creature we control. Now, we're not a token build. I mean, we do have a sizable number of creature spells, but that's all Shana's got going for her. She doesn't do anything to help out the team. She doesn't do anything to power up our board state, just herself. And regrettably, Shana may be on the way out as this deck nears its completion. Another card that may be on the chopping block as we get closer to the end, Silas Wren, the Seeker Adept. It's a 2/2 Death Touch, and whenever it deals combat damage to a player, we choose target artifact card in our graveyard. We may cast that card this turn. So this may have some synergy with Brea and her ability to sacrifice some artifacts, and then if Silas Wren can come in for some combat damage, we can bring one of those artifacts back per turn. We'll see. Maybe this also has some additional synergy with Hannah, Ship's Navigator. So we're going to give Silas Wren a run. We're going to give it a test drive. We're not going to just automatically cut it. It's not as on the fence as Shana and Kessar. Okay. Next up, we have Sisay, Weatherlight Captain. And I'm just going to go out there. I'm going to say it right now. If there were ever a time that Morophon could not make it to the table, maybe he had a family commitment, maybe he was out fishing for the day, or maybe he just needed the day off, Sisay can step right in and pilot this deck as well as Morophon can, if not even better. She's 2/2. She gets +1/+1 for each color among other legendary permanents we control. So if we pull Sisay back a bit, do you see the number of gold cards down there? The majority, nearly all of our legendary humans are gold creatures. So the ability for her to buff her power and toughness is a very, very real thing. And that's an awesome thing for us, because if we tap white, blue, black, red, green, we can search our library for a legendary permanent card with converted mana cost less than Sisay's power and put her right onto play, right into the battlefield, right into play. If Sisay's by herself, hey, then we grab a land. We're going to have some legendary lands in this build. Sisay Weatherlight Captain is on deck in the waiting circle, just making Morophon look over his shoulder. All right, we're nearing the end here. Next up, man, this guy brings the power. This guy brings the value. Surrak Dragonclaw is just an awesome creature. 2 and a teamer for a 6/6 flash. He can't be countered. Creature spells we control can't be countered. Love both of those things. And other creatures we control have trample. He helps out the team in so many ways. Protects them from counter spells, gives them trample. With all the cards already included in this deck, we have the means to create some very big legendary humans. And Surrak giving them trample, that is a great thing. All right, we are moving right along here, folks. Next up, we have Sidri, the Galvanic Genius. For a blue, target non-creature artifact becomes an artifact creature with power and toughness each equal to its converted mana cost until the end of turn. Just once, I want to target a mana crypt with this. Just once, I want to target a, what is the name of that card? The Indestructible Artifact land. I had it in my mind all day. Now I forget what it's called. That land. And then additionally, a white and a black, target artifact creature gains death touch and lifelink until end of turn. So yes, we have the ability to give our artifacts, turning them into creatures and giving them death touch and lifelink. So Sidri has some versatility attached to her 2/2 body. Darksteel Citadel, that's what it is. Darksteel Citadel. All right, next up, going back to Commander 2017, we have Taigam, the Ojutai Master. Instant spells, sorcery spells, and dragon spells. We can throw the dragon spells out because we're not going to have any dragons included in this build. Instant and sorcery spells we control can't be countered by spells or abilities. Wonderful. Love it, love everything about it. And whenever we cast an instant or sorcery spell from our hand, if Taigam Ojutai Master attacked this turn, that spell gains rebound. So we can just cast it again. Well, not cast it, it'll be a copy, but still, we're going to get a twofer. Next up, we're going to Dragon's Maze, and here is Tajic, Blade of the Legion, doing all kinds of Borosy things. 2/2 indestructible with the Battalion mechanic. If Tajic and at least 2 other creatures attack, Tajic's getting +5/+5 till end of turn. So with 2 other buddies with him, he's a 7/7 indestructible. Yeah, that's going to bring some pain. Oh, just messed up on my piles. They were looking so nice too. There we go. All right, so if we got Tajic version 1.0, chances are we've got Tajic 2.0. This 3/2 haste has the mentor mechanic, and whenever Tajic attacks, we put a +1/+1 counter on target attacking creature with lesser power, and we prevent all non-combat damage that would be dealt to other creatures we control. So that's Chain Reaction, out. That's Blasphemous Act, out. That's pretty much any direct kind of red damage. And we can tap red and a white, and Tajic Legion's End gains first strike till end of turn. Be a great leader for our combat phases. Next up, we have Thalia, Heretic Cather, going back to Eldritch Moon. 3/2 first strike, creatures and non-basic lands our opponents control enter the battlefield tapped. It's a great way to hose our opponents, and a 3/2 first strike, she can carry some some combats herself. All right, we're down to our last few here, folks. Next up, we're going to the Triad of Fates. We tap a generic or colorless and put a fate counter on another target creature. We can tap a white and tap this human wizard and exile target creature that has a fate counter on it, and then return it to the battlefield under its owner's control so we can blink it. Or we can tap a black and tap it and exile target creature that has a fate counter on it, and its controller draws 2 cards. So there's some versatility with Triad of Fates that allows us to, protect our creatures or get rid of our opponent's creatures or keep a creature from attacking us over and over again. I'm looking forward to testing out Triad of Fates. Next we have Timna the Weaver, 2/2 lifelink. At the beginning of our post-combat main phase, we may pay X life, where X is the number of opponents that were dealt combat damage this turn, and if we do, we draw X cards. So the typical black archetype of pay life and draw cards. The next creature we had, and there's that tone that's going to get this creature next to Exava and Joda. We had Vorel of the Hullclade. Green and a blue, double the number of each kind of counter on target artifact, creature, or land. As we discussed already with Exava, this is not a +1/+1 creature. This is not a +1/+1 counter build or any kind of theme. As you can see, we only have a few things that give us +1/+1 counters, and there's only one other spell right now that puts any additional type of counters on it, and that's the Door of Destinies with charge counters. So it just appears to me that by exiling Vorel and including something else in its spot would make the deck more synergistic and more powerful. So Vorel is out. And this is the last creature card from the original 100 that got slimmed down to 33. And that's Yasova Dragonclaw. A 4/2 trample, and at the beginning of combat on our turn, we may pay 1 and blue-red, any combination of Simic mana. And if we do, we gain control of target creature an opponent controls with power less than Yasova Dragonclaw's power until end of turn, and we untap that creature, and it gains a haste. And with the number of different spells that we have included in this deck already to buff Yasova Dragonclaw's power, if we have enough blue-red mana available, we could really take a bunch of creatures from our opponents. Yasova is really underrated. Very, very powerful. And there you have it, folks. 30 legendary human creature cards slimmed down from our original 100. So, we took out 3 that did not fit our theme or focus very well. And now we're going to include 2 that really fit the theme of what we're trying to do. Legendary humans. And in so doing, we're going to bring our total number of legendary human creatures to 32. So with the 30 you see in front of you, here's number 31, and I think you'll agree it's a good call. Captain Sisay. 2, a green and a white. She's a 2/2, and we can tap her to search our library for a legend or legendary card, reveal it, and put it into our hand. Now, as I pull back Captain Sisay to show 30 legends right there for the picking, not including any potential other legendary cards that will be included in this build, we can keep Captain Sisay from heading to the graveyard. She's going to tutor us up some great number of creatures, great number of lands, sorceries, artifacts. Captain Sisay is moving to the front, baby. And that leaves number 32, our last inclusion for this video. And I think you'll agree, a much better addition than Exava, Joda, or Vorel. We have Joyra, Weatherlight Captain. For 2 blue and a red, we have a 3/3, and whenever we cast a historic spell, similar to what Wrath Capuchin alluded to, we draw a card. And for historic, those are our legendaries, of which we have plenty, and our artifacts. Joyra Weatherlight Captain synergizes with the theme of this deck beautifully, just like Captain Sisay does. And you may be asking yourself, well, why weren't these 2 creatures included in the original 100? Well, I wasn't sure that this was the path we were going to take. There was a suggestion made by an MTG Burgeoning subscriber to just further restrict the number of creatures we put into this deck by making them all legendary. And after hearing that, that was a really good idea, so we did that, and I figured, you know what, let's cannibalize them from a different deck to make this Morophon human deck that much more powerful. And then that's how Captain Sisay and Jorah Weatherlight Captain came to be. All right, and that's going to be all for today's video, Burgeoning fans. So, for next Sunday is Fun Day video, we're going to continue building our legendary human build. Let me try again. Next Sunday is Fun Day. We're going to continue building with Morophon and our legendary humans. And what we're looking for next, let's get 10 cards that are human and or legendary matters cards, because now we have our theme, now we have our focus. Let's make it stronger. Let's enhance that focus. Let's enhance that theme by including some more human and or legendary matters cards. You can leave some suggestions in the comments below, or you can click on the tappedout.net link below and leave some comments there. Folks, this is Sunday Fun Day, and I hope you had as much fun as I did. This is MTG Burgeoning. Go forth and enjoy your day. Want to become a Pack Wars combatant? 4 easy steps. Step number 1. Click on the link below in the description, or go to www.buymeacoffee.com/MTG Burgeoning. Step number 2. Select either membership or support. Membership will enroll you into Pack Wars for $5 each month. Support will cost $5 for 1 month. Step number 3, complete payment information. The name you use will appear on the site. Use your real name, use your YouTube handle, or use no name at all and be anonymous. Be sure to include your email address in the information. Step number 4, most importantly, prepare for war.